Good morning and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for Wednesday, the 28th of April. I just can't believe how fast this year is flying by. This morning, I'd like to talk to you about mental health, something I think is on the minds of a lot of people during this pandemic as we have been sort of closed in and sort of kept from doing the things that keep us mentally healthy, a lot of us. But I'd like to talk also about the stigma of mental health and how debilitating that can be. There are a lot of people, probably a lot more than we know of, who suffer from depression or who have other mental health issues, schizophrenia, bipolar, many other things, OCD, all kinds of things that the chemical balance of our brains has a significant impact on. But we also have been told over the years that there are other things that have impact. Vitamin D, simply getting enough sun, being able to get fresh air and exercise, proper health or proper eating, getting our vitamins and our minerals and all of those things. And then also, of course, the people that we hang around with, the work that we do. Do we feel like there's something that we are contributing to the world? Do we feel like we're being appreciated? All of these things are factors that contribute to the state of our mental health. But I think, unfortunately, there is a big stigma, and hopefully we're getting better at it. I'm not sure, though. If we see someone who has walking with a cane or has a cast on their arm, we're quicker to open a door for them, or to, if it's a kid, we want to sign their cast. And what happened? We want to hear this amazing adventure story about how they broke their arm or whatever it is. That's sort of one level of injury. People have, they got a story to tell, or they've something that we sort of classify as, it's a funny thing, or it's something they go, oh no, that's not good, but we don't stigmatize them for it. Then there are illnesses in our world that sometimes people can be really ignorant about. You see someone who needs oxygen, who has been a smoker their whole life, and some people will, might make the snide comment about, well, if they hadn't smoked all their life, they wouldn't have emphysema. They wouldn't need oxygen. We don't know that. We also don't know why a person smokes. I remember growing up thinking back in the days when seatbelts were still optional, cigarette smoking was apparently not harmful. And we also know now that it is incredibly addictive. And to say to somebody, you're an idiot, or it's stupid that you smoke, you should just make a better decision. Not so easy. That person obviously hasn't been through or entered into a time of addiction or a difficult place, or had to deal with something like that. The same thing can be said about people who are overweight or people who have type 2 diabetes. I have type 2 diabetes, and yes, of course, my lifestyle contributes to that, but I'm trying to live a healthy life. I'm doing the best I can. I'm still a good person. And there have been times when I have been ridiculed for that I brought this on myself. We would never say that about someone with type 1 diabetes. We're mean to one another sometimes, and that's not okay. We should be looking at people and feeling compassion or empathy for them. How can we help them? And if that's how we treat people when we see their disability or their different ability or something that seems to be wrong with them, maybe something that they cannot fix or something that cannot be easily healed with a cast or a surgery, we have to pay attention to that, to what we're doing to who the person is. We have to look deeper inside and see, how are we harming that person? How is our judgment? Is our judgment Christ-like? Is that what Christ would say to that person? If Jesus walked up to someone who had type 2 diabetes or someone who was struggling with their weight or something, would he say to them, you're an awful person? You don't deserve to have my time because you don't take care of yourself? I don't think so. And those are the things that we can see. But there's an even more insidious problem when it comes to mental health. Because we have this tendency, and I'm speaking about society, and maybe you're not one. I pray that you're not. I know I still struggle with it. I struggle with all of these things. Not nearly as much as I used to because I'm becoming more aware and trying hard. But when someone has a mental health issue, or they have a brain injury, or they have an occupational stress injury, or they have acute stress disorder, or post traumatic stress disorder, or post traumatic stress syndrome. These are often things that we can't see, and they are often things that the person who has them are dealing with all the time. If you think about it, if you've ever, had the flu and you still had to go to work, and it took every little bit of effort you had to walk up that flight of steps because you got a bit of a fever or you're not feeling well, you're out of breath, and getting through your day, your mind is kind of foggy and like COVID times, and you're really struggling, and you realize when you get home how much effort it took just to do the things that you would normally do if you were feeling better without thinking about them. Put yourself in the place of someone who has a brain injury, a stress injury, some kind of a mental health issue, a mental illness. They spend all of their time trying to negotiate with the world. Not a moment goes by when they aren't dealing with, on some level, feelings of stress and worry, some kind of extra effort that it takes to just get through the next moment. And quite often, those next moments are times when they are trying to hide what they're feeling. They're trying to hide how they feel. I live in a world that includes many people that I know who serve in the Canadian Armed Forces. And there are a lot of people who are very young, in their 20s and 30s, who have served in Afghanistan, some who are in their 30s or 40s or 50s who have served in Bosnia, and have seen horrible, horrible things that they don't talk about, but they have seen them. Some people have had to do things that the average person would never have to do. And those can cause what they call occupational stress injuries, OSIs. They can cause post-traumatic stress, and things that maybe they've dealt with or they think they've dealt with, and then something can happen, a loud noise or the sight of something or the sound of something or the smell of something brings them back, and they're right back in that bad time, in those moments when they had no control or felt like they had no control or ability to make a better decision. And if you are aware that they are going through a moment like that, it is painful to watch them. It is painful to see that the battle they have is not something that the world can see, like a broken wrist where, I'll sign your cast and I'll pray for you. Or even something like type 2 diabetes or emphysema, or something where we might be a little bit judgmental, but we'll still be supportive. When it comes to these invisible injuries or these invisible illnesses, we are too quick to judge that somebody has a short temper, or they're scatterbrained, or there's something wrong with them. They're a loner. They don't want to hang out with people. We aren't quick enough to wonder, I wonder what it is they're carrying in their brain. I wonder what memories they hold that have scarred them, their minds, and their hearts. I wonder what nightmares they have. I wonder how they are doing when they wake up at 4 a.m. and try not to wake up their wife. When they are screaming inside their heads because of the noise the kids are making outside, yelling and screaming and whooping and hollering, and all they can hear in their minds is the terrified sounds of war. Some people deal with things like schizophrenia or bipolar disease, and they are dealing with drugs and medications that are so difficult that they take away often their sense of who they are, their sense of self, their sense of being able to feel. On a good day, they remember that not feeling, not being able to know that was a joke and laugh at it, or to feel the wonder of a child as they climb up on your lap and say, "Daddy, I love you," that not being able to feel that because of their drugs or whatever is happening, that's a better thing than how they feel when they're not on their drugs. All too often, people start to feel better. They start to think, I can control this, and they come off their medications, and things start to spiral, and it gets worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse, until not only they, but their families and friends are now dealing as well with these mental illnesses. Mental health is a struggle that way too many Canadians have. And in this time of COVID, this pandemic, it is so much more, I think, prolific because it's more difficult to get help. And we aren't able to see others to say, hey, you know what, I think you need to talk, or do you need some help? We are isolating ourselves from others on purpose with, for a good reason. But at the same time, that very isolation can cause mental health issues to go undiagnosed or to get worse. And we need to be there. If we are the person who does not have a mental health issue or a brain injury or an invisible injury, we need to be a bit more alert and aware to watch out for those around us who might, because we might need to be the person who reaches out to them to say, you're okay, you are loved, what can I do to help you? Even if it's simply, just sit with me, keep an eye on me, call me every couple of days and make sure I'm okay. And if you are the person who has a brain injury or a mental illness or some sort of invisible wound, it's important that you know that we aren't going to judge you, that you can reach out for help, you can ask for help and for prayer. And if something happens and you go off your meds or you lose your mind for a while for the memories of things that you cannot put away, we will still love you and we will still be here to help you. So if you are dealing with a mental health issue, if you are dealing with a brain injury or some form of invisible wound or invisible injury, please reach out. Call me, email me, text me, message me on Facebook. Call health services. Call your doctor. Call a neighbor, a friend. Let someone know how you're doing, even if all you ask them for is just to remember you. And if you are the kind of person who's looking around and thinks that you see something and you're worried, ask the question. Most people, if we ask gently and without judgment, if they're okay, if there's something we can do, they won't be mad. They might even appreciate the fact that we asked. But we have to do so without judgment. We cannot run the risk of making people who already feel like they are injured or there's something wrong with them, even though there isn't. We can't make them feel worse because that will just make the problem worse. We need to be able to make them feel like they can come forward and ask for help. So let's think about what we say. Let's think about the people that we meet. Let's consider and pray for all those who are struggling with mental health issues, for our soldiers and our veterans, for people who are first responders, firemen and police officers, for anyone who has had to deal with difficult things. Especially right now, I think our doctors and nurses and all of the people who work in the hospitals, for those who are dealing with COVID. Because while they're in the midst of it, they may cope, but what will happen when things slow down? Their injuries will be invisible, and we need to make sure that we are not invisible to them when the time comes that they need us. Have a good day. Have a gentle day. God bless you, and be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow again for Church at Home with Rachael.